This isn't a Death Corps of Krieg trooper. He's something else entirely. He's a heretic trooper from Trench Crusade, and the moment I saw him, I went down a rabbit hole of discovery. I interviewed the artist to gain more insight. Why is there a fetus on the heretic trooper's belt? Traveled to London, England to play a demo game with the rules writer. Saw firsthand how the community has responded at both Adepticon and UK Games Expo, and was inspired so much by it that I've done something I haven't done since I was a teenager. MiniWarGamer Dave here from MiniWarGaming.com, and in this video, I explain the lore and showcase 8 units from the Heretic Legion faction. I've been a fan of the grimdark since I started wargaming a couple decades ago, and it was only a matter of time before I found these guys. All the paints used on the models showcased in this video are available at Wayland Games. Links provided in the description. But before we dive into the units, what happens when an artist isn't allowed to properly express themselves? When I asked Mike Francina, the artist behind Trench Crusade, what inspired him to come up with the concept, he said when he worked for Blizzard, he'd come up with a lot of concepts, but was told they were too disturbing. How ironic is that? Blizzard, the company responsible for games like Diablo, which is literally a game about battling the devil in hell, told him some of his art was too extreme. After many years of rejected ideas, a stockpile of gruesome concept art was born. Little did he know, this pile of unrealized potential would one day send a psychic shockwave through the wargaming community, the likes of which has never been seen. Then, James Sheriff, the editor of the free grimdark magazine 28 Mag, reached out to Mike to be featured in an article. He thought the worst he could say is no. 28 Mag Volume 4 publicly unveiled Trench Crusade for the first time and became the catalyst for unleashing years of Mike Francina's pent-up creativity. That answers why we have Trench Crusade, but what is it exactly? In the 28 Mag article, Mike says, it's a bit of a long story, but essentially the Knights Templar discovered a demonic artifact beneath Jerusalem during the First Crusade. They became the first heretics and turned Jerusalem into a depraved pit where hell and our mortal plane now bleed into one. So the church has been trying to take back the holy city for another 1,000 years, and the crusade has progressed to more modern weaponry. But my favorite part is when he says, coming up with the factions and creatures is a lot of fun. Mostly, I try to push myself to make things that will disturb the viewer, or at least have a memorable impact. I love that so much. Mike is my kind of deviant, I'm not gonna lie. Now that we have the why and the what, now for the who. What if I told you a third of humanity chose hell? In Trench Crusade, the line between man and monster is razor thin. And the Heretic Legions are what happens when that line gets completely obliterated. These aren't demons invading from some other dimension. These are people, our people. Cities that once rang with church bells now echo with the same screams of the sacrificed. Factories made of flesh. Markets where human meat is sold like pork belly. And if you're lucky enough to spy on their domains and return alive, you'll probably never sleep again. The Heretic Legions are the main satanic military force on Earth, fueled by infernal industry and dark devotion. They march between upside-down crosses, forging a new empire in the image of hell itself. This is what happens when humanity doesn't just fall, but dives headfirst into the abyss, laughing all the way down. Now moving on to our first miniature in our Heretic Legion warband, we've got the Heretic Trooper. You don't just join the Heretic Legions, you survive your way into them. Imagine walking a road made of screaming souls. Not metaphor, literal. Your flesh burning, spirit breaking. Every step toward the bronze gates of hell, branding you with the stink of eternal damnation. Most collapse before they get there. Their bodies tossed into piles, some still twitching. Not quite dead, but just not evil enough. But if you reach the gate, you don't get to turn back. You belong to hell now. Heretic troopers are the backbone of the satanic war machine. Each one has stood before the maw of hell and been claimed by an archdevil. Their bodies are seared, their souls are shackled, and their loyalty is absolute. Armed in the forges of damnation and guided by the whispers of hell's hierarchy, they march as damned soldiers in the Great War, forever bound to darkness and proud of it. First time I saw this guy, I had a burning question, and since I had Mike on a call in an interview, I just had to ask him. this question. Why is there a fetus on the Heretic Trooper's belt?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's one, it's interesting. Two, at all the jobs I've had, I always wanted to like include like a creepy dead baby in the art, and they'd be like, you can't do that. It's impossible. And so now I can do that. So that's really like one of the big reasons. But also there's like in a lot of like witchcraft kind of lore, there would always be like, they would make like potions out of babies and things like that. And so who knows what kind of ritualistic purposes there might be for that.
And that told me everything I needed to know about the kind of people who would like this game. And I was one of them. Is there something seriously wrong with me? I mean, I think I do pretty normal things. Burning our way over to the next unit, most Heretic Troopers stop at the gates and call that damnation. But the Anointed are the ones twisted enough, strong enough, and devoted enough to go even further. They go past the maw and onto the shores of the Lake of Eternal Flame. Their flesh ignites and never heals. Their minds break and reform around one truth. Pain is power, and fire is the voice of their master. The Anointed are living infernos wrapped in heavy Guyana plate. They're brutally blistered giants who wield weapons so massive they might as well be siege engines. You'll know them by the smoke on the wind and the flames flickering behind their eyes. Among the Heretic Legions, they are feared, revered, and serve as the final proof that hell rewards those willing to burn for it. Instant nostalgia when I saw this burnt little guy. As kids, there's certain movies we'd watch on repeat like 100 times. Growing up in the 90s, you think for me it'd be Hook or Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. As much as I've seen these movies, it wasn't them. It was Darkman, played by Liam Neeson. In the movie, he plays a scientist looking for a solution for burn victims by inventing synthetic skin. Turns out the corporate bad guys didn't like that too much. And in a twist of irony, he becomes a burn victim himself. With burns covering most of his body, the surgical team does the one thing that would prevent a life of perpetual pain. They sever his nerves, but the side effects are extreme emotions, including irrational behavior and uncontrollable rage, which of course gives him superhuman strength, because this is a comic book horror movie after all. Darkman was born out of hatred and violence, but the Anointed, on the other hand, is a being who willingly walks into fire and accepts the pain. Both are extreme and grotesque. Oh, by the way, I wouldn't recommend watching Darkman as an 8-year-old like I did. As much as he is a superhero, it gave me nightmares for years. For this next unit, I'll issue a viewer advisory and recommend you skip over it if you've got kids in the room or you don't like disturbing things. But more importantly, why would you be watching this with kids in the room? Put headphones on at the very least. You hear them before you see them, and by the time you do see them, it's already too late. In the Heretic Legions, damnation isn't the end, it's a starting point. Some troopers go to the gates of hell. The Anointed walk through it, but the Choristers, they die for it. On purpose, mutilating themselves atop black altars in inverted temples, begging the archdevils for the honor of becoming something worse. Most don't come back, but the ones that do, their corpses rise, carrying their own severed heads, and sing. Choristers are a blasphemous joke at the Redeemer's expense. Reanimated suicide cultists whose disembodied heads scream hymns from hell. Their songs rupture eardrums, break morale, and flood minds with visions from the pit. As cold blood spills from their wounds in glowing, unholy script, they march to war not human, but as instruments of infernal prophecy. For many on the front lines, a chorister's voice is the first and last thing they ever hear. This has got to be one of the most disturbing units in the entire game. Maybe we should move on to something lighter? Damn, Mike, come on. You know what? We got to blame Tuomas for that too. He came up with the lore, right? You hear the barbed wire snap like twigs. That's when you know the Warwolf is coming. The Heretic Legions don't fight alone. Alongside the damned march beasts birthed in torment, creatures twisted by infernal possession, and clad in armor from hell's forges. These are more than just simple animals. They are weapons sculpted by cruelty and rage. The Warwolf is one such nightmare. It doesn't flank, it doesn't hesitate. It charges straight through defenses meant to stop entire armies. Built for speed and savagery, the Warwolf tears through miles of barbed wire with a head shaped like a living battering ram. Its armor is marked by Hell's own smiths, proof that it was not born, but crafted for war. Wherever the Heretic infantry advance, the Warwolf runs ahead, clearing the way with howls that echo the screams of the damned. If you see this beast, you can be sure it's the first sign that Hell is on the move. It's just so strange looking. Like, this is... Yeah. But I gotta say, if you like berserking forward into the enemy and corning forward, as it were, then this guy is perfect for you, right? He actually moves fast and much more swiftly than the rest of the warband. I played with him once, and it was very satisfying seeing the fear on the face of my opponent. That was the best part. But now for something more sinister. You thought he was just a priest. Then he made you charge your own men. Every heretic warband needs a leader, and the heretic priest isn't just shouting blasphemies from the back, he's warping reality with every cursed word. These fallen clerics have pledged themselves to demon lords like Pazuzu or Gisan, trading salvation for sorcery. Not only do they cast spells, they rewrite the battlefield. Their voices alone can rupture eardrums and burst eyes in their sockets as holy men and martyrs fall to their knees in terror. The heretic priest is a living conduit of Hell's will, reciting profane gospels that summon demons and shreds morale. With their puppet master spell, they can force allies, enemies, or even themselves to lurch across the battlefield like marionettes. Into melee, off cliffs, or straight into the guns of their own squad. You don't fight a heretic priest, you resist him. That is until your own legs betray you. The first time I used a heretic priest in a game of Trench Crusade, I couldn't wait to use the puppet master ability. I thought it'd be cool just to move my own units around. That is until Spencer, the dude I was playing against, the same Spencer who was one of the first backers of the original crowdfunding campaign, the same Spencer who's played hundreds of games of Trench Crusade and owns every faction, the same Spencer who suggested I perform the risky action of using Puppet Master with my heretic priest to move his Herald of Beelzebub off a 3-story building just to see what would happen. Yeah, that Spencer. And the outcome? Not only did I successfully pull that Herald of the Black Plague off that rooftop, but he went splat on the ground in front of me, instantly killing him in what would become the most satisfying moment of that game. And the best part is that Spencer himself suggested that I do it. So how can I not like this game?
I'm guessing it's fun too.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Let's move on to some fodder. And in every game, you need fodder. In the Heretic Legions, even cannon fodder has a chance at redemption. They were prisoners, slaves, failed adventurers, caught in raids, sold in markets, or dragged in chains from the factories of the 66 lords. The Wretched are the lowest of the damned, branded with cursed tattoos that eat their flesh, pumped full of drugs to numb their minds, but keep the rage alive. Most die screaming, trampled by friendly boots, or used as living shields. But there's one cruel promise that keeps them running. Earn your freedom through slaughter. And so, the Wretched are Hell's disposable penal troops, shoved to the front lines, soaked in blood, and then forgotten. But if one of them takes down an enemy elite, they're free on the spot. No more fighting. No more chains. Just gone. A gamble with everything on the line. Meanwhile, their deaths empower the heretic elites who sent them. Whether they rise or fall, their suffering fuels the war effort. For in the legions, even the trash is weaponized. You know, I'd like to say I feel sorry for these guys, but I kind of feel like saying, like, they asked for it. Like, what are they doing snooping around areas where they're going to get caught and then thrown at the front lines? Like, be smart. Don't go out past your bedtime, and definitely don't stay up until 3 a.m. Good things don't happen. Speaking of the wee hours of the morning, you never see them coming. But by the time you notice, your squad's already dead. The Death Commando is the Heretic Legion's answer to subtlety and it's terrifying. Cloaked in unholy stealth tech that even blinds the gaze of heaven, these killers slip past the trenches, barricades, and watchful sentries like smoke in the wind. They don't fight battles, they erase them. One whisper, one cut, and a whole squad vanishes. Bodies left twisted in poses of silent panic. Death commandos deploy from nowhere, hidden from sight, cloaked in infernal tech. Ranged attacks struggle to even target them, and if they hide in the ruins of war, they can vanish from the battlefield entirely, untouchable until they strike again. In a world of bombastic horrors and screaming zealots, the Commando is a ghost with a knife, and your last breath might be the only sign they were ever there. As a player who loves melee combat, my first experience with one of these guys was both disappointing and stellar, but only because mine was equipped with Tartarus claws. In my game with Spencer, I hid my Commando from line of sight so he couldn't be targeted by his thralls. Now, the special ability of the Tartarus claws allows me to perform a second charge and attack if I successfully take out a unit. But because I was hidden, I'd need to perform a risky action to do this. I was so looking forward to making that roll, but it failed. You know, all that build up and then nothing. So much potential met with utter disappointment.
You know, you try for one thing in the game and you want it to be super cool, but no, nothing.
But sometimes, the archdevils grant us another round of combat. In other words, I just needed to wait for turn 2 and try again. This time I was successful and killed not one, but 2 thralls. And when I think about it, it's kind of funny how one's emotional state can be tied to a dice roll. But that's just one of the facts of life when you're a wargamer. And before I reveal the last unit in the warband of the Heretic Legions, I want to know what your favorite unit is to field, if you field them at all. And if not, which one you would choose. No voice, no mercy, no limit to the bombs, just a black portal and the end of your squad. The artillery witch doesn't speak. No one's seen her face. Some say she was never born at all, just built in the death factories of Hell's third circle. She walks the battlefield like a silent executioner, levitating over rubble, untouched by fear or gas, her hands glowing with abyssal energy. And from that void, she summons infernal bombs, one after another, without ever running out. Artillery witches are living weapons platforms, lobbing cursed ordnance from miles away with uncanny precision. Each bomb explodes in a burst of shrapnel and screams, sending enemy troops flying, bleeding, and praying it's not their turn next. She never speaks, she never stops, and once she's locked onto your squad, the sky opens and hell answers. When I captured Tuomas presentation at Adepticon this past year, it surprised me to see the community's reaction to her. Sometimes things just organically happen, and the Artillery Witch is living proof of that. And finally, remember that one thing I mentioned I haven't done since I was in high school? Well, it turns out, once an artist, always an artist. I was inspired by my love of Trench Crusade so much that I made my own faction proxy in the game. It's a story I've been wanting to share for months now, but I'll explain it more in the video to come. Subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified when I post it, and you'll never guess which faction it proxies for. I'm MiniWarGamer Dave, and this is the Heretic Legion.